somebody sometime. Everybody falls in love somehow. Something in your kiss just told me my sometime is now.
And judging by the response to our series Dino, the Dean Martin story, everybody, or at least a lot of people, love Dean, the man who died 7 years ago and yet is still one of the most popular singers and actors of his generation. Good evening, I'm Michael Friedland, and joining those of you who think that Dino had a voice that you wanted to hear over and over again.
When you're too tense, it's common sense to relax-vous. The more you earn, the less you learn to relax-vous.
We French, you'll find, are more inclined to relax-vous. Relax, 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 relax-vous. Your doctor bills, they're all for pills to relax-vous. You're in your prime, so now's the time to relax-vous.
The girls pursue those fellas who can relax-vous. Relax, 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 relax-vous.
Well, relaxed is perhaps the best way to describe Dean's manner, in live performance, on screen, or in the recording studio. This now is Gloria Franks, first wife of his favourite songwriter, Sammy Cahn.
I mean, he looked like he was the most comfortable person in the world on the stage. He had great command on that stage. I mean, every little move Dean made was not studied. It just came to him. It was brilliant, totally brilliant. And people used to sit and watch him, you know, the stars, the celebrities, people, and they were amazed at what they saw.
There was another crowd around of somewhat less attractive people who thought that Dino was a pretty nice guy. The mob. When mafia boss Sam Giancana opened a night spot in Chicago, he ordered Dean, along with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., to appear there as what he called a favor. It was an offer they couldn't refuse.
I love Chicago. It's carefree and gay. I'd even work here without any pay. I'll lay you odds, it turns out that way. That's why this gentleman is a tramp.
Dean Martin on stage in 1962 at the mob-owned Villa Venice. Yes, that's how they pronounce Venice in those parts, in Chicago. A performance typical of his stage act at that particular time. Greg Garrison, who produced Dino's TV shows, told us about another occasion when Dean and the rest of the pack played at a mafia-controlled theatre in Cicero, Illinois.
Opening night, okay, if a bomb went off in the first row, organized crime, as we know it in this country, would have been over with for at least 12 to 15 years till the next generation came in, because they were all there. They were all there.
And Dean's willingness to work for gangsters, often without being paid a cent, was his way of saying thank you for past favours. But it wasn't only the mob who felt the benefit of Dino's gratitude.
There was a comic, his name was Gene Bayless. He was kind of a third-rate comic, a nice guy, been around for a long time. He had a cute little act 30, 40 years ago. And he showed up at rehearsal one day, you know, on the show. A lot of guys walked in. And Dean saw him and he said, "Hey, Gene, pal, buddy, how do you feel? Good to see you." And he gave him a big hug. A couple of hours later, I said to Dean, I said, he's kind of a cute guy. I said, how do you know him? And he looked at me and he put his arm on my shoulder and he said, he gave me milk money. You know what that means? When they were both broke, and Dean had 3 kids, this guy lent him money to buy milk for his kids. I booked him on the show 2 weeks later, and then I booked him again 3 or 4 months later. He did about 3 or 4 shows. Dean never, ever said, book him. And when he worked the show, Dean had a big smile on his face. It was his way of saying, thank you.
Every night I sit here by my window, staring at the lonely avenue, watching lovers holding hands and laughing,
Ha ha ha.
thinking about the things we used to do,
Think about things,
like a walk in the park,
things,
like a kiss in the dark,
things.
like a sailboat ride.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the night we cried?
Oh.
Things like lovers vowed, things that we don't do now. Thinking about the things we used to do. Memories are all I have to cling to,
Cling to.
and heartaches are the friends I'm talking to.
But you got me now.
When I'm not thinking of just how much I love you.
I love you too.
Well, I'm thinking about the things we used to do.
Used to do. Think about things,
Like a walk in the park,
things,
like a kiss in the dark,
things.
like a sailboat ride.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the night we cried? Things like lovers vow, things that we don't do now. Thinking about the things we used to do.
Dino with Nancy Sinatra, daughter of the man he claimed was his best friend, and of whom he said,
We're practically like brothers, you know. Everything we do, we sort of do together. We always keep in touch with each other, and families are always together. We're brothers. Everything is Frank and me.
it actually isn't easy to separate the various worlds of Dean Martin in what would turn out to be the last years of his phenomenal success. When he was having his amazingly triumphant TV show, at 18 years, the longest-running program of its kind, he was plainly involved with the mob. But so, of course, were other members of the Rat Pack.
We open in Venice, we next play Verona, then on to Cremona, lots of quail in Cremona. Our next jump in Parma, that heartless menace, then Mantua, then Padua, then we open again. Where?
Well, let me see now. I got a map. Let's pick out someplace.
Yeah, well, just don't take it too far down the line there.
Oh, well, let's take the first canyon out of here.
Matter of fact, if we hurry, we can beat the tad. Of course, the sheriff's out there waiting for us.
Usually, but as we've heard, not always, they opened in Vegas. Listen now to actress Ruta Lee, who performed with them in the movie Sergeant 3.
If Frank was down that week that we shot around Frank, then the week that Dean was down, we shot around Dean. But there was a lot of comings and goings because we'd all go down to Vegas to see whoever was playing. It wasn't that big a flight, but then, you know, there was a little partying going on afterwards, and by the time you got everybody to reconnoiter back at the plane again, you know, and Frank had literally hired a fleet of planes, you know, to go back and forth.
Trailer for sailor rent, rooms to let 50 cents. No phone, no pool, no pets. Ain't got no cigarettes, but 2 hours of pushing broom buys a 8 by 12 4-bedroom. I'm a man of means, by no means king of the road. 3rd boxcar, midnight train, destination Bangor, Maine. Old worn out suit and shoes, don't pay no union dues. I smoke old stogies I have found, short but not too big around. I'm a man of means, by no means king of the road.
Dino travelled rather more comfortably when he went with the Rat Pack or when he deigned to turn up for work at the TV or film studio. Nevertheless, to some people, he was the king, although Sinatra might have had something to say about that. There were also rumours of love affairs all the time, and one such story concerned the Rat Pack's own Shirley MacLaine. Apparently one day she called at the Martins' house to declare her devotion, only to be intercepted by Dino's ex-wife Jeannie, to whom he'd long before returned. Jeannie, who remained his first love after 10 years and a third marriage away, was, shall we say, somewhat taken aback.
Completely surprised. Certainly she just came unannounced. So I assumed that she had to have a meeting with Dean. So of course, we were all friends, so I greeted her and we went in the living room, and I laughed so much now when I was thinking to myself, what Dean must have been going through. What is she doing? Because he did not reciprocate those feelings. He and Shirley did not have a romance, but he loved her.
When he was working with the pack, no one expected much more of him than to have a good time. It was either a romp or it wasn't worth doing. And the best of those times was probably when the gang were joined by the old groaner himself, Bing Crosby. He was with them in a piece of nonsense called Robin and the Seven Hoods. It actually proved something, that they all had, what was it, do you think? The word I'd say is style.
You've either got or you haven't got style.
If you got it, you stand out a mile.
A flower's not a flower if it's wilted.
A hat's not a hat till it's tilted. You've either got or you haven't got class.
How it draws the applause of the masses when you wear lapels like the swellest of swell. You can pass any mirror and smile. You've either got or you haven't got.
Got or you haven't got.
Got or you haven't got style.
Talking of which, everybody believed that Dino's style came to him pretty easily. And as we've heard, he never really rehearsed. He did his film scenes in one take, or, frankly, he wasn't interested. He'd record his songs just as simply. He believed, we're told, that it all came out better that way, and perhaps it did. But then, that was how he also conducted his private life.
I went to his house one time. Dean had a car up for sale. So I went to take a look at Dean's car, and Dean was on the sofa. And I walked in, and he never moved. He didn't say hello, kiss my nose, you know. And that bothered me. But Dean was that way. Dean would, if somebody would come into his house, Dean would run upstairs and watch television.
That's comedian Shecky Green.
He lived in his own little vacuum. And I think basically that Dean was an introvert.
Jeannie Martin could explain that. As she said, he liked watching TV and couldn't stand talking or showing emotion.
When he was working, no one could get close to him. He would, if he was finished with his shot on the lot, he'd go out to his trailer and just swing his golf club or watch a Western. He never became friends or close with anyone. Never. He wasn't a great one for, conversation. He was a man of few words. He was a man who wasn't really in touch with his feelings.
Naughty lady of Shady Lane has hit the town like a bomb. The back fence gossips ain't been this good since Mabel ran off with Tom. Our town was peaceful and quiet before she came on the scene. The lady started a riot, disturbing the suburban routine. Oh, the naughty lady of Shady Lane has the town in a whirl. The naughty lady of Shady Lane, me Oh my, oh what a girl.
In 1983, Dino made a welcome return to Britain. He celebrated his 65th birthday in London, and it was there that the Variety Club arranged a luncheon in his honour.
I don't have anything prepared because I didn't know this tribute was going to be given to me until about 3 months ago. I would like to make a toast to the men. May our wives and sweethearts never meet. You're looking at me like as if I'm going to say something.
With his little mandolin and a twinkle in his eye, senoritas he can win, always for another guy. Italians love to sip a cup of cappuccino and listen to the man who plays the mandolino. You offer him a cigarette, a glass of vino. That's how he's paid to serenade your lady fair. With his little mandolin and a twinkle in his eye, senoritas he can win, always for another guy.
The happy Dean Martin. It seemed like the perfect life, but then everything changed. In 1987, tragedy struck. The worst thing that could possibly happen to a parent. Dean's 39-year-old son, known as Dino Jr., was serving as a part-time pilot with the National Guard, and his plane crashed into a mountain, and he was killed. Dean was distraught.
Because he hadn't seen Dean Paul in that kind of period that he was going through, that midlife crisis, what really finished it was his remorse that he had missed Dean Paul's flying career, and he just couldn't live with that. He just cried and cried and cried. It was, and I had to let that alone because he was right. That's what he had done. He felt so guilty.
Close friends of the family, like Frank Sinatra and the rest of the Rat Pack, came along to Dino Jr.'s funeral. There was also a surprise that Dino never knew about.
About 75 feet away was a man standing in the corner alongside a tree, trying to be as quiet as possible, and it was Jerry Lewis.
And Jerry himself has always kept quiet about that intensely personal moment. But in an exclusive interview for this series, he spoke about it for the first time.
That night, I get a call from Dean, and he said, "If you think I loved you before, you got to know how I feel now. The fact that you would come and be there and not even let me know you were there was the one most wonderful moment of my life." And we talked for about an hour and a half on the phone. He said, "Jer, I can only tell you why it hit me so hard." He said, "I only know of two men in the world that I ever loved. It was Dino and you. And I can't deal with him being gone." And he started to cry. And so did I.
Following his son's death, Dino became a recluse. He didn't want to go out. He didn't want to work. But in 1988, there were echoes of happier times when the Rat Pack got together again. Dino, Frank, and Sammy Davis Jr.
Take it from me, don't be a leads you to that place below, and every day you'll grow sadder, you'll feel sadder, you'll get madder. So use that self-same step ladder to climb the other way. Scrapping and fighting, scratching and biting, cheating and acting. Selfish makes your heart like a part of the hardest hard-shell shellfish. Take it from me, don't you be a do-badder, a do-badder, a do-badder. Just step aboard that step ladder and climb the other
way. Frank came to him and said, essentially what he really said was that they wanted to go out on this tour to help Sammy. It was not to help Frank, and it was not to help Dean, because Dean was a very, very rich man, big time. And so he said, okay. Well, he couldn't do it. I knew he couldn't do it. He knew he couldn't do it 5 minutes after he said, okay. But he and Frank were together all that time, and Sammy was broke. Sammy was broke. That's where they did it, you know. So we went out. They opened in San Francisco. It was a chore.
After a few weeks, Dino said he'd had enough and bowed out and was replaced by Liza Minnelli. And according to Garrison, old Blue Eyes didn't speak to him for another 2 years. Was Dino just grieving, or was he ill? We know he had stomach problems and an ulcer had needed treatment, but he wasn't the same guy at all. The death of his son had had a terrible effect on him. Shecky Green again.
Dean used to hang out at a restaurant late at night. People told me he took his teeth out, put it on the table, and sit there and just sip on a drink. Well, I never could picture him doing that. I could never picture him being out in a restaurant allowing people to see him this way. And why he didn't go in for an operation. They told him he needed an operation and he didn't have it. But I just could not picture him going that way.
If there is such a thing as a broken heart, it seemed fairly obvious that was what Dino had. It wasn't a complaint from which it seemed there was any chance of recovery. Jerry Lewis saw just how terrible it all was for his old partner.
He was dying. He was dying every day after Dino was killed. He was the only apple he ever had of all the children. My heart and my brain and instinct told me he's going to let himself die over this.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Man, it doesn't show signs of stopping, and I brought me some corn for popping. The lights are turned way down low. Let it snow, let it snow.
The year 1995. It's Christmas Day.
One of Hollywood's most colourful entertainers, Dean Martin, has died. He was 78. Dean Martin found fame as both an actor and a singer who cultivated his flamboyant reputation.
Last night of his life, you're the only girl I ever loved. I mean, he's just so sweet, and regretted so many things. And, of course, told me all of the things he regretted. So when you say at the end, if he didn't communicate before, at the end he couldn't have been more loving and caring.
The fact that we've been doing these programs for the past 6 weeks shows that the appeal that Dean Martin represented did not die with him. So what was there about this man? Try this from Angie Dickinson.
He was so like whipped cream. Just delicious and beautiful and soft and gentle and very soft lips.
His old producer pal, Greg Garrison, won't forget him either. That's for sure.
Everybody said, look how he smiles, look how handsome he is. Look, how well he sings, look how cute he is, look how he walks, look how he does all of that. It was his eyes, kid. You looked at the man's eyes. You know, the camera looked at his eyes, and his eyes just twinkled.
And then there was this from Shecky Green.
It's a great loss. It really is. And we miss you, Dean.
Jerry Lewis now ready to talk about him almost 50 years after their breakup. Put it like this.
Before him, I was adequate. After him, I tried to cover what I did before, but with him, I was a giant. Motivated by a giant.
And how would you think that Dean himself would like to have been remembered? In 1983, someone put that very question to him.
Damn good entertainer. Nothing spectacular. Good entertainer. Make people enjoy themselves and make them laugh a little.
Everybody loves somebody sometime. And although my dream was overdue, your love made it well worth waiting for someone like you. Everybody loves somebody sometime.
Dino, the Dean Martin story, has been written by me, Michael Friedland, and was a Robin Quinn production for BBC Radio 2. Our Hollywood correspondent has been Barbara Paskin.